There is a strange truth about human relationships. Most people imagine that the greatest threats in life come from obvious enemies, the people who openly dislike us, the people who openly compete with us, the people who openly try to hurt us. But experience teaches something very different. The individuals who leave the deepest scars are often the ones who never look dangerous in the beginning. They enter quietly, they become familiar, they earn our trust, and over time, they begin influencing the way we think, feel, and see ourselves. Not through one dramatic event, but through thousands of small interactions that slowly reshape our inner world. The danger is that these influences rarely announce themselves. There is no warning label, no alarm, no clear moment when we realize something harmful has entered our lives. Instead, we simply notice that we feel more tired than before, more anxious than before, less confident than before, and somewhere along the way, we stop feeling like ourselves. Art of Thinking invites us to look carefully at these patterns, because awareness is often the difference between being shaped by an environment and consciously choosing the people who deserve access to our lives. And perhaps the first pattern is one that many people underestimate: the person who constantly leaves you feeling drained. Not every relationship takes energy. Some relationships create energy. You leave the conversation feeling lighter, more inspired, more hopeful. But other relationships seem to operate in the opposite direction. Every interaction feels strangely exhausting. The conversation always circles back to problems, complaints, disappointments, frustration. At first, compassion tells us to listen, and compassion is important. Yet there is a difference between supporting someone and becoming the permanent container for their negativity. Some people never seek solutions. They seek audiences. They repeat the same stories, the same complaints, the same emotional cycles, not because they are trying to heal, but because the cycle itself has become familiar. Eventually, you begin carrying emotions that never belong to you. Their anxiety becomes your anxiety. Their anger becomes your tension. Their hopelessness begins coloring your own perspective. And the strange part is that you may not notice it happening. You simply wake up one day feeling emotionally depleted. The lesson is not to become cold. The lesson is to recognize that protecting your energy is not selfish. It is necessary. And once we understand how people can drain our energy, we begin noticing another pattern that can quietly erase our identity. Some people do not drain you through negativity. They drain you through self-absorption. Every conversation becomes a mirror reflecting them. You talk about your struggles. They redirect the focus to theirs. You share good news. They somehow make it about themselves. You need support. Suddenly, they disappear. Yet when they need attention, your presence becomes an expectation. Relationships are meant to contain reciprocity, a natural exchange, a rhythm of giving and receiving. But with deeply self-centered individuals, that rhythm disappears. Everything flows in one direction, toward them. Over time, something subtle begins to happen. You stop sharing your thoughts. You stop expressing your needs. You stop expecting understanding. Not because you have nothing to say, but because experience has taught you that nobody is listening. The result is not anger. The result is invisibility. And few experiences are more damaging than feeling invisible inside a relationship. Yet even these relationships can seem peaceful compared to what happens when someone introduces constant chaos into your life. There are people who seem permanently surrounded by storms. Every week brings a new conflict, a new betrayal, a new emergency, a new disaster. At first, this appears to be bad luck, but eventually patterns emerge. The details change. The drama remains. Some individuals become so accustomed to emotional intensity that calm feels uncomfortable, silence feels unfamiliar, peace feels boring, and so they unconsciously recreate conflict wherever they go. The danger is not only their chaos. The danger is proximity to it, because human beings absorb emotional environments. Spend enough time around panic and you begin feeling anxious. Spend enough time around conflict and you begin feeling defensive. Without realizing it, their storms become your weather. Life becomes reactive. You spend your days managing crises that were never yours to manage. And while chaos steals peace, there is another type of person who steals something equally valuable: your trust. Trust is one of the most powerful forces in human relationships. It allows us to relax, to rely on others, to build plans, to move forward with confidence, which is why chronic disappointment leaves such a deep mark. Some people make promises effortlessly. They always have the perfect words, the perfect assurances, the perfect intentions. But intentions without action eventually become manipulation. Not necessarily malicious manipulation. Sometimes it is simply irresponsibility, but the effect remains the same. You begin waiting for things that never happen. You delay decisions. You place your faith in commitments that repeatedly collapse. And every broken promise teaches a small lesson. Be careful. Don't trust too much. Don't rely too much. Eventually, skepticism replaces confidence. The world begins feeling less stable, because consistency is the foundation of trust. And when consistency disappears, relationships become uncertain ground. Yet, uncertainty is still easier to recognize than another form of damage that attacks our potential itself. Every person carries possibilities inside them, dreams, goals, ideas, visions of what life could become. These possibilities are fragile in the beginning. They require encouragement, patience, faith, which is why certain voices can become extraordinarily destructive. Not because they challenge us, but because they discourage us from trying at all. The dream killer rarely offers constructive guidance. Instead, they offer certainty about failure. You can't do that. That will never work. People like you don't succeed. At first, these comments seem small, yet repeated enough times, they begin forming internal beliefs. And eventually, the external critic becomes an internal voice. The person no longer needs to discourage you. You do it for them. The tragedy is that many unrealized lives begin this way. Not with inability, but with surrendered belief. And if dream killers attack our future, the next type of person attacks something even more fundamental: our perception of reality. One of the most psychologically damaging experiences is losing trust in your own judgment. Knowing what happened, yet somehow feeling uncertain about it. Feeling hurt, yet being told your feelings are wrong. Remembering clearly, yet constantly hearing another version of events. This is the territory of confusion. The person who twists reality rarely uses force. Instead, they use doubt, a subtle suggestion, a denial, a reversal. Gradually, the victim begins questioning themselves. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe it's my fault. And this process is dangerous because confidence depends upon self-trust. When self-trust weakens, decision-making weakens. Boundaries weaken. Identity weakens. The person becomes easier to control because they no longer believe their own perceptions. Yet there is one final relationship pattern that often leaves the deepest wound of all, because it disguises itself as friendship. Betrayal hurts differently. An enemy cannot betray you. Only someone trusted can do that. The two-faced friend understands this. They know how to create closeness. They know how to appear supportive. They know how to earn confidence. But behind the scenes, another version of them exists. A version willing to gossip, mock, expose, or quietly undermine. The damage extends far beyond the original betrayal. Because once trust is broken, future relationships become more difficult. Walls appear. Suspicion grows. Openness decreases. The person begins protecting themselves from everyone because of what one individual did. And this is why awareness matters. Not because we should become paranoid. Not because we should expect the worst from people. But because wisdom requires discernment. The goal is not to eliminate relationships. The goal is to choose them carefully. Every person who enters your life influences your inner world. Some strengthen it. Some weaken it. Some help you become more yourself. Others slowly pull you away from who you are. Art of Thinking reminds us that peace is not only created by what we do, it is also created by who we allow to remain close. The quality of your life will always be connected to the quality of your relationships. And sometimes the most powerful act of self-respect is not adding someone new. It is recognizing who no longer belongs in the story you are trying to build.